Yo, what's going on, guys? Welcome back to a brand new video on the channel. Inside of today's video, we're going to be taking a look at all 55 brawlers in the game and giving you guys their best star powers, gadgets and gears to use on all of these brawlers. So going to be a super long video, so make sure you guys are subscribing if you want to see any more of this type of content. So before we jump into today's video, make sure you're using the credit code in the shop. That'd be greatly appreciated. And without further ado, let's jump straight into it. Okay, so as always, we're going to be starting with the trophy road brawlers all the way up into the chromatic brawlers. So starting off with Shelly then. So Shelly, best star power and gadget going to be the shell shock star power and the clay pigeons gadget. That's going to be by far the better combination for her. And then when it comes to gears, speed is always going to be the #1 choice for Shelly. Of course, she doesn't do a lot of damage at far range, so you're going to be getting close and personal with enemies, so speed's really going to help you with that. And then for the most part, I use shield just because it helps you in those first initial gunfights, but also damage can be a good alternative. Okay, next up we have Nita. So with star powers and gadgets, it hasn't changed whatsoever, so you want to be using a bear with me star power all the time except for heist, where you want to be using hyper bear. And then for gadgets, definitely want to be using the shield gadget. And then for gears, the speed gear is definitely going to be the better option for Nita. And then I also run damage because Nita doesn't often do a lot of damage. All right, guys, jumping into the next brawler event. So we have Colt. So with star powers, I feel like it's definitely a personal choice for this one. I use Magnum Special just because of the extra range, but Slick Boots is definitely a good star power as well. When it comes to gadgets, Silver Bullet's definitely going to be the better gadget, being able to break open those walls, so then other brawlers around you can thrive. A really good thing for Colt. And then when it comes to gears, it can really be down to what you prefer. For the most part, I will be choosing the damage and shield. Unless it's a really grassy map, then I'll opt for speed. Okay, so next up we have Bull then. So Bull, a really easy one to kind of differentiate with star powers and gadgets. So with star powers, you're going to be using Tough Guy in every single mode, maybe except for heist, where Berserker can get you some good value. And then for gadgets, you want to be using the Stomper one basically all of the time. Sometimes I will opt to use the T-Bone Injector when it's heist, so to give you that extra bit of damage. And then also when it comes to gears, I feel like it's a really easy choice again with a Bull. Well, most of the time I will be using speed and damage. You know, often you probably can get some value out of the health gear, but still I feel like speed and damage is the best choice for Bull. Okay, so next up we have Jessie. So her build hasn't changed whatsoever. Energize and the Spark Plug gadget is going to be by far the better combination for her. Sometimes on heist you might want to opt for the other gadget, but overall I think the Spark Plug is definitely better. And then when it comes to gears, the speed gear is going to be definitely the best one. In terms of a lot of grassy maps, a lot of the maps will have a little bit of grass in the middle, so that's where Jessie can thrive with it. And then for the most part, damage is going to be the better second one, but maybe if you're on a map that doesn't have a lot of grass, then probably use the shield gear. Okay, so next up we have Brock then. So Brock's build has changed, of course, because the incendiary star power is now baseline. So in terms of star powers, I think 4th rocket is by far the better star power in my opinion. The new star power, it looks flashy, but I don't think it actually adds to how strong he is. The 4th rocket going to be really good in heist. And then for gadgets, rocket fuel is still going to be by far the better gadget. Just being able to break open certain walls, it really allows Brock to dominate. And then when in terms of gears, I think that damage and the shield gear is by far the better option for him. Next up we have a Dynamite. So Dynamite star power and gadget combination hasn't changed whatsoever. So demolition and satchel charge is definitely going to be the better option for him. And then in terms of gears, the damage and shield gears are going to be the best ones for him. Okay, so next up it is Bo. So Bo, again, not really anything changing about him. His super totem gadget and the stun mines star power is going to be the better choices for him. And then in terms of the gears, depends on the map. For the most part, I will use speed and damage with Bo. Okay, so next up we have Tick Ben. So in terms of star powers and gadgets, really easy choice. We've got the well-oiled star power and last hurrah gadget, by far the better options for him. And then when it comes to gears, it's really interesting because all of them can be pretty strong on Tick. The extra damage can be pretty nice. The health gear obviously getting reworked, so that can work really well with Tick. Again, shield can give him that extra bit of HP, and then speed on those grassy maps can be pretty strong. So all 4 really good options. Okay, guys, so next up we have 8-bit. So with 8-bit, the star power and gadgets not changed as always. Plugged in, going to be the better star power by far. And then when it comes to gadgets, cheat cartridge definitely going to be the better one. Maybe heist, you could use the other one, but I still use cheat cartridge in my opinion. And then when it comes to gears, they've got an interesting one because the health gear is actually really strong on 8-bit. So if you've got a bunch of health gears, I'll definitely be putting on 8-bit. He's a high HP brawler, so that health gear really going to help him out. And then the speed on really grassy maps can really help him because he does struggle without that turret. and then damage can also be super strong on 8-bit. So next up we have M's. So both star powers are pretty strong with M's. My personal choice is their hype star power, and then we're going with gadgets. I thought the new M's gadget would be really strong. I don't think it's really strong at all. Her older gadget, the knockback, is going to be by far the better choice in my opinion. It's really going to help you confirm those kills, and M's gets countered too hard by those aggro brawlers. Knockback helps to counter that. So and next up with gears, the speed gear is definitely going to be the #1 choice with M's and also damage. Okay, so next up we have Stu then. So Stu is actually an interesting one because both star powers and both gadgets can be strong on certain maps, but when it comes for the most part, I think the gas heal star power and the breakthrough gadget is going to be the better build. On those more passive maps, you can use the other gadget just because your mid can get some value out of that speed turret, and then also on those more longer range maps, you might actually get some more value out of a longer dash. You do see that often being used. And then when it comes to gears, it's actually a difficult one with Stu. There's 3 obviously good gears with him. For the most part, I'll be using the speed and damage combination. Okay guys, so next up we have El Primo. So again, nothing really changed with his star powers and his gadgets. All 4 of them going to be pretty viable. For the most part, my favorite build is going to be El Fuego and the suplex throw, just because it normally counters those brawlers you want to counter with Primo, but you can obviously opt to use this speed star power and also the break gadget, just depending on your composition. And then when it comes to gears, so the health gear is actually going to be pretty strong on El Primo because he's a very high HP brawler, so getting him back to that full HP is going to be really strong. I think it's actually like an extra second or 1.5 seconds to get back to full HP, much faster than before, so that's really going to help him. But for the most part on those grassy maps, speed is going to be really strong, and you're also going to get a lot of value out of that damage gear as well. So next up we have a Barley. So the herbal tonic gadget and the extra nauseous star power is going to be by far the better combination for him. And then when it comes down to gears, you've got damage and shield, which are going to be the better options. So next up we have Poco. Nothing has changed about his base build. So in terms of star power, the Capo is going to be by far the better one, and then gadgets, Tuning Fork is going to be better for him. And then with gears, I feel like the damage and shield gear is going to be the better combination. Okay, so next up we have Rosa. So in terms of gadgets, Grow Light is going to be the better gadget 90% of the time, just because it allows you to get more usage out of your speed gear, and that's going to be the main thing that makes Rosa so good. And then Plant Life is going to be by far the better star power for her, keeping you alive in an extra 200 HP per second. And then when it comes to gears, the best choice by far is going to be the speed one, 100%, and then damage is going to be really strong. Okay, so next up we have Rico. So Rico, star powers and gadgets not going to change whatsoever. The best gadget by far is going to be Bouncy Castle, and then for the other one, the extra damage bounce is definitely going to be the better one for him. Then in terms of gears, again, it can be up to the map because you can get so much value out of the speed gear when playing in maps like Hard Rock Mine, where you can easily sit in the grass and just speed around constantly. And then also, I do prefer damage for the most part, but on those non-grassy maps, you can use damage and shield. Okay, so next up for Daryl, nothing has changed again with his star powers and gadgets. Best star power going to be the Steel Hoops star power, and then with gadgets, Tar Barrel is going to be the better one. Often people use the other gadget, but Tar Barrel is going to be better because it allows you to get closer, so you can do even more damage to them. The other gadget is only really used on Heist when it comes to pro players builds, and then when it comes to his gears, the best gears for him are definitely going to be the speed and damage gear. Okay, so next up we have Penny. Star power and gadget not changed whatsoever. Balls of Fire star power with a Captain's Compass gadget going to be the best build for her. And then in terms of gears, the speed and damage gear is going to help her out the best. Okay, so next up we have Carven. So in terms of star powers and gadgets, there's 2 clear choices here. So Power Throw going to be by far the better star power, and then Flying Hook is going to be by far the better gadget. Then in terms of gears as well, speed and damage are going to be the better combination. So next up we have Jackie. So in terms of gadgets, she only has 1 gadget, and star powers, both of them can often be okay, but Counter Crusher is the preferred choice for me just because she's really bad in this meta, and Counter Crush can help you kill those brawlers because she doesn't really do a lot of damage, and that's why for gears as well, the damage and speed gear combination is going to be the best one by far. Okay, next up we have Piper. So Piper, both star powers and gadgets can have its uses. So in terms of ambush, I'm going to be using it on those passive maps, especially on Bouncy and Gem Grab, and then snappy sniping when you definitely know that you're going to be facing more aggro brawlers, and just overall snappy sniping is probably the better star power. Then in terms of gadgets, Homemade Recipe is going to be better 99% of the time, but maybe in Power League, if you're facing off against multiple aggro brawlers like a Mortis or a Fang, then the other gadget's going to be better. Then in terms of builds, it can be down to your personal preference for this one, but most pipers will be using the speed and damage gear. Okay guys, so next up for Pam, it's really easy options in terms of a build. So the Mama Squeeze style power going to be the better one. That extra damage with the turret is going to really help you be aggressive with Pam, and Scrap Sucker going to be by far the better gadget, the best gadget in the game right now. In terms of gears, the speed gear and the damage gear is going to be the better options for her. Okay, so next up we have Frank. So the Sponge star power is going to be definitely the better choice for him. In terms of gadgets, it can really come down to your personal preference, because the second gadget can be really good at finishing those kills. If you combine this with the damage gear, you can get some really nice damage on the enemies, but then the other gadget helps you cancel against those supers that really counter Frank. And then next up in terms of gears, so the best gears for him by far in my opinion are going to be the damage gear and the health gear. Okay, next up we have BBs. So in terms of star powers, both of them have its uses, but in terms of the better one, Batting Stance is going to be the best one in my opinion, because you can combine it really well with healers and with her first gadget, which allows you to heal even when taking the damage. And in terms of build, in terms of gears as well, the speed gear and the damage gear is going to be the better one. Okay, so next up we have B. In terms of star powers, Insta Reload is going to be the better star power. Then in terms of gadgets, the Honey Molasses is going to be the better gadget. And in terms of gears, the speed gear is going to be really nice, especially in those middle engagements. And also damage has got to be the best one for B, because she can do a lot of damage, especially with that 3k charge shot, but often on those non-grassy maps you can use shield. Okay, next up we have Nanny. So Nanny's build really depends on the game mode which you play her on. When you're playing game modes like Heist, you're going to be using the TP gadget and then the Tempered Steel star power, because basically all the time you want to be doing is getting your super and TPing into the enemy's base. And then when you're playing the more longer range maps, or you're playing as a gem carrier, you want to be using the Return to Sender gadget and the autofocus star power. And then in terms of gears, really easy choice, damage and shield is going to be the better pair for her. Okay, so next up we have Edgar then. So I feel like the Fisticuff star power is going to be the better one for him, allowing him to heal up more and charge up his super better, because that's what he really struggles with. In terms of gadgets, I think both gadgets actually have its uses. I often use the Let's Fly one just because sometimes it can take so long for Edgar to get into the game, and it often leads to the enemy team just pressing you back because they know you don't have super for a long time. And then in terms of gears, the shield and the damage gear is going to be the better pairing for Edgar. Okay guys, so next up we have Griff. So really easy choices with him. He's only got one gadget and his other star power is absolutely awful. Keep the Change is going to be by far the better one. In terms of gears, speed and damage is going to be the better build for him. So next up we have Grom. So in terms of star power, X Factor is going to be by far the better star power for him. In terms of gadgets, really depends on the map what you're playing. On those really bushy maps, the Watchtower gadget is going to be really good. It enables you to scout a lot of lanes and a lot of bushes already, and that's the kind of thing that counters Grom, all those opponents sneaking in the bushes. And then in terms of gears, damage and shield is going to be the better choice for the most part, but on those maps where you're playing lane on Grom and sometimes you want to be switching your matchup a lot, the speed gear is going to be better. Okay, so next up we have Mortis. So Mortis star power, really easy choice. Creepy Harvest still going to be the better star power just because it gives you that additional healing. And then for gadgets, it can just come down to personal preference. I'll always use a Survival Shovel, giving you those extra dashes, allows you to charge super that little bit better. In terms of gears, I think damage and the shield gear is going to be the better choices for Mortis, but I feel like you can actually get some decent value out of the health gear as well. Okay, so next up we have Tara. So in terms of star powers, both star powers can be good down to your personal preference. And then in terms of gadget, Support from Beyond going to be the better one. Her best gears as well going to be the speed and the damage gear. Okay, next up we have Jean. So in terms of star powers, Magic Puff is going to be by far the better one. And in terms of gadgets, Knockback always going to be the better one unless you're on those longer range maps, and you might get value out of the other gadget. And in terms of gears, speed and shield gear is going to be the better pairing for Jean. Okay, so next up we have Max then. So for Max, the better star power is Run and Gun, but you can get some good value out of the other star power, especially on a passive map. In terms of gadgets, Phase Shifter by far the better one. And then with gears, I often use the damage and the shield combination. Okay, so next up we have Mr. P. So both star powers are actually going to be really good with Mr. P. Still yet to really decide on which one is better, just depends on your preference. But I use Handle Care for the most part, just because that extra damage is really nice. He doesn't really do a lot of damage himself, so being able to get increased damage is really nice with him. That's why in terms of gears, I will always use the damage gear and the shield gear. And then when it comes down to his gadget, the service better one is going to be the better one. Okay guys, so next up we have Sprout then. So his star powers and gadgets haven't changed whatsoever. You're going to be using the overgrowth star power on those maps that are really passive and don't have a lot of bushes on. On the other maps with lots of bushes, you're going to be using photosynthesis because you're going to be getting a lot of value out of your shield. And then in terms of gadgets, it's really up to you how you really want to play with Sprout, because his walls can be really good, so that gadget transplant can be pretty strong, but then golden mulcher can be really strong to keep itself alive. And in terms of gears, damage and speed is going to be the better options for him. Okay, so next up we have Byron. So I'd say about 90% of the time you're going to be using the melee star power. It's really going to help destroy the enemies a lot easier. But if you know, for example, you're facing off against like a Ruffs or a Spike, which has a gadget which is really annoying, you can pierce through that with the injection star power. In terms of gadgets, both gadgets are actually pretty strong. It can be up to you, again, what you prefer, just because they both have its uses. And then with gears on those really bushy maps, speed and other maps, you want to be using the damage and shield gear. Okay, so next up we have Squeak then. So in terms of star powers and gadgets, basically all of them are pretty bad. So his best star power is probably going to be super sticky, just because you're able to get some value out of his slow if you're able to hit any enemies with your super. And then with gadgets, both of them really bad, but I often use the first gadget just because it's a little bit more fancy. And then in terms of gears, the best gear is going to be damage for him, and then it's up to you what you want to use, but for the most part I'll be using speed. Alright guys, so now moving on to the legendary brawlers, starting off with Spikes. So Spikes, best star power going to be by far Curveball, one of the best star powers in the game, but I often use Fertilized on maps with a lot of walls, for example like Pinhole Punt, or the maps Forks Out can be really good fertilizer. You get a lot of value out of that star power. In terms of gadgets, by far the better gadget is going to be Plant Life. And then in terms of his builds, for the most part the best build is going to be damage and shield. Alright guys, so next up we have Crow. So the best star power and a gadget build for Crow is by far going to be the Slowing Toxin gadget and the extra toxic star power. And then in terms of the gears, speed 100% of the time you're going to be using on Crow, and then up to you whether you want to use damage or shield. I'll often use the damage gear. Okay guys, so next up we have Leon Ben. So best star power and gadget, really easy choice. You've got the Invisi-Heal star power and the Lollipop drop. That's going to be by far the best build in terms of that for Leon. And then in terms of gears, speed gear is going to be definitely the first better option. Then it can be up to you with damage and shield, but often I'll be using the damage gear. Okay guys, so next up we have Sandy. So the better star power and gadget combination is going to be the Rude Sands star power and the Sweet Dreams gadget, by far the better choices for him. And then in terms of gears, you've got speed and damage, which are going to be really strong. Okay, next up we have Amber. So in terms of star powers, really easy choice here. Wild Flame is going to be the better one, and she only has one gadget. When it comes to gears, damage and speed is going to be better for her. Okay, and lastly for the legendary brawlers, we have Meg. So her best star power and gadget, really easy because she only has one gadget, and her other star power is really bad. Force Field going to be by far the better star power for her, and with gears as well, really easy. Damage and shield going to be the better combination. Okay, so now moving on to the chromatic brawlers, starting off with Gale then. So Gale's best star power is going to be Blustery Blow. The recent buff to this star power made it one of the best star powers in the game. It's so strong. Definitely use that star power with Gale, and his Twister gadget going to be really OP, especially against those brawlers that are looking to be really aggressive onto you. And then the best gears is going to be the speed and damage gear. Okay, and next up we have Surge. So Surge only has one gadget, but when it comes to star powers, easy choice here. It's going to be Serve Ice Cold. It allows him to keep that extra upgrade when he dies. And then when it comes to gears, speed gear can often be pretty good, but for the most part I'll be using the damage and shield gear combination. Okay guys, so next up we have Colette. So I'll be using her shield star power pretty much all of the time, just because it allows her to stay alive a little bit longer, and that's what Colette often struggles with. And also with her new gadget Gotcha, that's going to allow her to stay alive a lot easier. And then when it comes down to gears, I feel like the damage and shield gear is going to be the better option for her. Okay, so next up we have Lou then. So Lou's best star power is easily going to be super cool. The other star power is really bad. And then Lou's second gadget, the Syrup one, is going to be really good and allows you to confirm a lot of kills with Lou. And then in terms of gears, the damage and the speed gear is going to be best for Lou. Okay, so next up we have Russ then. So in terms of star powers, the air superiority is going to be really strong on a lot of different maps, because you can break break open walls and allowing your teammates to just thrive even better. But on those really defensive maps, the HP star power is going to really allow you to get that extra HP for you, well, for your teammates. And then next up in terms of gadgets, the take cover gadget going to be by far better. Sandbags are just really good at wasting a lot of ammo for the enemies. And then the best gears for him is going to be damage and shield. Okay guys, so next up we have Belven. So in terms of star powers and gadgets, such an easy choice here. So in terms of star powers, the shield star power is going to be by far the better option. Grounded is like the worst star power in the game, so really easy choice there. And then in terms of gadgets, nest egg is going to be by far the better option. A new gadget looks flashy, but it's really hard to get any value out of that gadget. And then in terms of the best gears, it looks like speed's going to be really strong on those grassy maps, but then on other maps, damage and shield. Okay guys, next up we have Buzz. So Buzz only has one gadget. When it comes to star powers, both can be useful, but this type of meta, I feel like Ice Sharp is going to be the better star power for you to use on Buzz. And then in terms of gears, pretty hard choice, honestly. Only damage, the real one that's going to stand out for Buzz. But then if I was to pick between another one, it would be speed or health. Okay, so next up we have Ash. So in terms of star powers, the first bash star power is going to be better, just because sometimes you can struggle getting your rage. So this really allows you to cycle your rage as much as possible. And in terms of gadgets, it can really come down to what composition you have around you. Chill Pill is going to be better for the most part, especially stand alone, because Rotten Banana used to be so OP, but it actually takes a lot of HP from you. So unless you have like a Byron or a Poco, then Chill Pill is going to be the better gadget. Then when it comes down to gears, speed gear and damage gear is going to be absolutely insane on Ash. Okay, so next up we have a Lola then. So the best star power and gadget, really easy for her. The best star power is going to be improvise. It just allows you to get that extra bit of damage. And then gadgets, her new gadget is really bad. Freeze frame is going to be one of the best gadgets in the game, super strong. And then when it comes down to gears, speed and damage is going to be the best. Okay, so now jumping into Fang then. So the best star power and gadget choice is going to be pretty easy. For the most part, you're going to be using fresh kicks. Sometimes on really passive game modes like Bounty, the other star power can actually have its value, but for most part, fresh kicks is going to be absolutely insane. And then this new stun gadget going to be by far the better option for you. And then in terms of gears, damage and health gear is going to be the best for him. Okay guys, so jumping into the final brawler, we have Eve. So Eve only currently has one star power and gadget in the game, but I feel like both new star power and gadget is going to be better than her current one, just because the first star power, well, the new star power seems absolutely broken, and her new gadget seems a little bit better than the one currently in the game. And then in terms of gears, speed and damage is going to be the best for her. Alright guys, it's going to be it for today's video. I hope you enjoyed this one, so let me know down in the comment section below whether I got anything really wrong, whether you prefer some other star powers or gadgets. But for the most part, this is pretty accurate. In terms of gears, I feel like you've got a pretty easy kind of template to really go in terms of like the maps. So like really bushy maps, speed you're gonna basically get value out of all of the time. There's certain brawlers you don't really need speed on. Damage and shield is going to be okay for the most part. Damage a little bit better than shield. And then the new health gear, I feel like it's not really the best. It's only really good on tankier brawlers, and I still wouldn't really use it on most tanks, but you can definitely get the most value out of the tanky brawlers. So if you've got a lot of health gears like myself, then I'll be putting most of the health gears onto my tanks. So yeah, that's going to be it for today's video guys. Hope you enjoyed. Don't forget to like, comment and subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time.